So in order to make sure we can safely do what we want to do with the credit card, safely use it, and also protect the credit card issuers too, there's a whole bunch of different legal protections that we have in place. So the first one is the Truth in Lending Act, and this allows consumers to make more informed decisions about their credit cards, and it forces banks to be upfront with the terms of their credit cards. So that's where we get this fair treatment of consumers by businesses. Um, in order to be fair, lenders must provide a disclosure statement. And that includes details about the loan or the credit card. And that includes things like the principal or the credit limit, the APR. And it needs to be clearly stated somewhere on that paper. We're going to talk about that later in this video. Any sort of finance charges or fees, and the payment schedule, more so if it's an installment loan. But credit card terms will also explain due dates or explain your time frame. So that's the Truth in Lending Act. You might see me use TILA. It's been called Regulation Z, but I don't use that in this video, and I don't usually use that in class. Fair Credit Billing Act is another little bit shorter information for us. But the Fair Credit Billing Act allows credit card holders to dispute errors in their billing. At the time, this was done exclusively in writing, just as we saw with credit reports. But now there are avenues to make electronic disputes, obviously. So you have to make your disputes within 60 days of the statement date. You have to provide proof of the error. Proof of the error could be things like a receipt. That's really the only thing I could think of. Maybe some kind of a bill. But something that shows the error, something that shows the issue at hand here. That's really all I can think of I can't think of another example here. The other thing that the Fair Credit Billing Act does is it provides protections for lost or stolen cards. So if you lose your card, somebody steals your card, you're not going to be held liable for fraudulent transactions made after the card has been reported. For any fraudulent purchases that have been made before the card was reported, you're usually responsible for up to $50 of the amount of the fraudulent purchases. I'm not sure why they still charge you for it. I think maybe it's a protection against people trying to call and pretend like they stole their credit card. But those are kind of the rules here, right? You are not going to be made to pay for any sort of fraudulent transactions after the card has been reported before it gets canceled. But any purchases that have been made that are in error, you'll still have to pay a portion of it, but you don't have to pay the whole thing. One really quick one that we have, but really important, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. And under this law, debt collectors cannot harass or abuse you to obtain payment for your debts. So if an account goes into collections, that means there's some kind of a third party that's been assigned to make sure you pay your debts. So this would be, if you were to fall behind on your payments, if you were to default on an account, what have you. That's what a collection agency is for. Harassment or abuse includes things like showing up at your door, but this also includes things like phone calls, emails, just normal mail, but also being threatening about those. Anything that might be constituted as excessive, right? If I get a phone call saying, hey, you need to make your payment, that's not harassment. But if they call me 7 times a day on 3 different phone numbers, then that's harassment, and that's illegal under this act here. It was actually in the news recently about a bill that's being discussed, I think in Massachusetts, about this act specifically and what actually now constitutes harassment or abuse with electronic forms of communication, because obviously this act was passed in 1977 and email wasn't really concerned and robocalls weren't really concerned back then. and they are now. So we're, I guess, looking into amending this act and really defining what it means to harass or abuse um, somebody whose account is in collections. One of the biggest laws that I'm going to talk about here is the credit. I'm not going to read the whole thing. The Credit Card Act, because it makes an acronym, because that's nice. The Credit Card Act, which was signed in 2009. And the quote right from the text itself is, this act was established or passed to establish fair and transparent practices relating to the extension of credit under an open-end consumer credit plan, which is wordy, but the key is right there. It's all about being transparent and being open so that way consumers can make informed decisions about which credit card is best for them. So in order to be fair, some of the things that were done is to say that credit card issuers must now announce any changes to your APR, to your interest rate, 45 days in advance of change. This gives you plenty of time to pay off your balance and to look into and apply for a new card if you are not happy with the change, right? So this actually now provides cardholders with a way out, with time to get out before the APR takes effect to pay up everything and get out. It also tells card issuers that they must give card holders 21 days to make a payment from the time that the bill has been mailed. And they can't trap their card holders either, right? So they can't make it due on a weekend or a holiday. 3 weeks is plenty of time. There's no penalty if it's received late but paid on time. I'll say received late but sent on time. Right? If I mail a check in to pay my bill, for example, and actually even a lot of times electronically, it'll take a couple days to process. And I can prove to you that I sent this payment in before the due date. I will not get penalized if you received it late, which is great. Not that you should wait till the last minute, but like if you have to, now you can, and you're not going to get penalized. So all of these things, or these two things so far, are meant to help you and help other cardholders pay responsibly and make responsible, informed decisions. The other thing the Card Act did, was explain the consequences of only making the minimum payments, and I'll show you that with a bill later on. There's a chart you'll see that'll say if I make only the minimum payments, this is how, like it'll say if I only make the minimum, this is how long it'll take me to pay off. If I up my balance, these are the alternative schedules. If I up my payments to $100, this is how long it'll take. And it shows you what that timetable will look like. There's now also a standardized list of debt counseling services if you're having a hard time paying off this bill. It also prohibits those under 21 from applying for credit without a cosigner. So that doesn't mean you can't apply for a credit card. It just means that maybe like a parent or a sibling needs to also be on the card who's over 21 and is allowed to and has theoretically established credit. I believe there's exceptions for like student credit cards. I don't believe I had a cosigner on my student credit card, just kind of speaking from experience. I don't believe student credit cards require a cosigner. However, there's usually a lower limit and a higher interest rate because it's an increased risk, right? This is a kid with absolutely no credit history whatsoever now trying to get a credit card. So usually you'll see a lower limit and a higher APR because it's a higher risk. One of the big things from the TILA, the Truth in Lending Act, is something called the Schumer Box. named after the senator that came up with it. That would be Chuck Schumer, who is still in office. You have things that look like this. It's a standardized way to present credit information on every single application, every single creditor's website, every single piece of junk mail that comes in telling you to apply for this credit card. There's something that looks like this. If you notice, it makes the most important information stick out to borrowers, right? You can see that APRs are written in larger print. You can see that things are categorized within bigger categories. You can see that charges are delineated clearly. You can see that there's a grace period stuff. There's the method for computing the balances. It's really easy to find information. Or I'll say it's easier to find information. Right? There's no hiding or burying information. It's harder to hide important details, and that helps you. Helps you put two things side by side, two cards side by side, and compare the details. And that's what we need to do, and it's what we want to do as responsible credit card users. Again, we want to be responsible with our credit. Approximately 150,000 cases of credit card fraud were reported in the US in 2018, and that makes up over 35% of total identity fraud cases in 2018, in that same year. We don't want to be one of those 150,000 plus. So to be responsible, don't lend your card to anyone, not even your friend, not even your sister, your brother, your mother, whatever. It's your card. It should not leave your site. Be careful about disclosing your card number over the phone. This is now becoming more complicated now. Recording this and making this video during a pandemic, because I mean, think about how much, I know personally how much I've gotten takeout and paid with my card over the phone. We have to be careful. There's a lot of risk there now because we're giving out our number over the phone. Just like a checking account, just like a checkbook, you should technically be balancing or reconciling your credit card statements too. You should try to keep receipts. You should try to keep a log of your purchases, again, so you can be responsible. And finally, carry only the cards you expect to use at any time to minimize loss in the event of theft. We don't want to have every single card, because if it gets stolen, I mean, what are we going to do? We don't have anything now. It's more problematic than if I only take the ones that I need, and that way, if anything does happen, God forbid, I only lose the things that I've taken with me, and I still have some kind of as backup.